Hey guys, Jared with Trident Fly Fishing, and today I'm going to be tying one of the most essential bonefish patterns if you're going to go to the Bahamas, especially Andros South. And we're going to get started right now. Okay guys, so in the vise I have a TMCO 811S, one of my favorite saltwater hooks, and it's in a size 4. You can vary the hook size depending on the size of the shrimp in your area. So I'm just going to start my thread, create a little bit of a base, and then right here I'm going to create a little bump with my thread, and this is for me to pull against with my bead chain eyes. So a couple wraps over, and then I'm going to start figure eight wrapping. Kind of adjust it where I need them to be. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to advance my thread to the rear. And this is a popular variation on the mantis shrimp, and what makes it a spawning shrimp is going to be this hot orange rabbit fur that I'm going to tie in. And the color I actually have is fluorescent orange. So I'm going to grab a chunk, cut it right off the rabbit strip, pull out the longer fibers, and leave the shorter fuzzy ones. And you can see I don't have much. Just a nice little hot spot. So the way I like to tie this in is so that it comes up the shank a little bit, up the bend of the hook. You'll see what I mean. So right about there. Because this is such a bulky fly, I'm just going to wrap over my butts, and it's going to help create the body. Okie doke. So the next thing I'm going to do is grab some tan craft fur, strip those out, set them aside. So I like to take the medium length fibers, kind of align them in my hand, stack the tips almost, just by pulling them out and laying them back down. You can see I don't have a huge chunk, just enough. And I want it to be about the length of the shank. So there, and I'm going to tie it in at that same point. And again, I'm going to come down the shank, the bend of the hook here, just a little bit. All right, perfect. So I'm going to do the same thing and just come back and all the way to right behind my bead chain, and then trim that off. Next thing I'm going to do is grab the short fuzzy fibers that I pulled out of my craft fur, and I'm actually going to use this for dubbing. Okay, so I'm just going to bring my thread back just a little bit and grab my makeshift dubbing here and dub a little noodle. So you're going to kind of taper this body. So for me, I think they come out better if I use progressively more of the craft fur dubbing down the shank. It's just enough to kind of go around and bring it back and just cover up my thread wraps here and start the taper of my body. And that's pretty good right there. So I'm going to strip off the excess that I don't need, kind of come in front of it. It'll create a nice little flat band of thread where I'm going to tie my legs in. So for the legs here, I have root beer with orange tips. I think it gives it a nice look and kind of creates almost a hot spot. One thing I like to do is grab all 3 of my legs and prep them by trimming the orange. And what that's going to allow me to do is still have the orange in there without being overly long. So for the first leg, I want them to extend just past my craft fur. So I'm going to tie it in one at a time. One side, take a couple wraps, push it right up against that craft fur, and then I'm going to pull this over and kind of rotate it so I can see and take my measurement here. So again, same measurement, pinch it, watch the hook point. That one's a little short, so I can just pull it. And it looks pretty good to me. So just cover those up. All right, with these sharp hooks, if you in thin thread, if you hit that point, your thread is going to break. Not a big deal. Happens all the time. Just trim it, start your thread again, and you should be good to go. Kind of get rid of junk that's in the way. All right, perfect. So the next thing I'm going to do is grab a little bit more dubbing. Same dubbing I'm using, just the short fibers from the craft fur. And just going to dub a thin noodle. So I have about inch and a half on there. Probably too much, but we could take it off. So I'm going to use this dubbing to control my legs, cover my thread wraps, and kind of continue the taper of the body. It's just right there. So again, create a nice little flat spot for your legs to go in. Kind of pull your thread back and grab your next set of legs. So the next set of legs, I'm going to do the same thing. And I like them to be a little bit shorter than the last ones. So right about there. So I'm going to tie one in on my side. Kind of rotate it again so I can see. Pull that over and match the length for this side as well. All right, double check. Looks good. The final tie down. Trim out this excess here. And then grab a little bit more dubbing. Inch and a half noodle here. Should be enough. You can see it is pretty thin. Okay, that should do it. So, pull your legs back, wrap. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit more than I did last time and help me with my taper. So grab the final set of legs. I'm going to take my measurement, and again, it should be a little bit shorter, about 3/4 the length. So I'm going to tie that in flat. Okay. Loose wraps, and then I can adjust this. Pull them down where I need them. Tighten down, and I'm going to rotate this and tie my other side in. So, take my measurement. I can find the short one. Right about there. Pinch that down against the hook shank. And that looks good. Maybe a little short. Close enough. Okay, tie those down, get them out of the way. And now, make sure you have enough dubbing here because we're going to cover the rest of the shank with dubbing. So, I'm going to use a little bit more than I have been, too, to create my taper. Ooh, doesn't want to dub. Okay. So first thing I want to do with my dubbing is kind of control my legs and cover that spot. Okay. Grab a little more dubbing. Find it easier if I do it in little short sections rather than try to dub it all at once. Always being mindful here of my taper. I'm going to grab some more dubbing. And it's fine if you get, you can see I have a little bit of thread showing through. I think it's part of the fly. It adds a little character. You don't have to fully make sure you can't see orange through it. When it gets wet too, that orange I believe kind of glows through. I think the fish can see it. Okay, so right there, finish up behind the eyes, and then I'm going to create a pretty thin noodle, and I'm going to figure eight through the eyes. So, just to cover up and kind of reinforce my thread over my eyes. So one, figure eight through, make sure that's fully covered, and then right in front of my eyes here, I'll just create a hot spot. Pull any kind of errant fibers out of the way. And then whip finish. Right. So with most of my fly, my saltwater fly patterns, I really like to use super glue. It penetrates well. It's pretty easy to apply with a brush, and I think it's way more durable. Extremely effective pattern. You can find all the materials right here at tridentflyfishing.com. Make sure you hit subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified of all of our future fly tying videos, and we'll see you next time.